Everyone thinks 1816 was just another year. It wasn't. A volcano on the other side of the world froze crops across North America and Europe, triggering mass starvation. And here's where it gets stranger. Nobody in Europe or America knew why it was happening. They woke up to snow in June, crops dying in July, and no explanation. The real culprit, Mount Tambora in Indonesia, a volcano so violent it exploded with the force of 60,000 atomic bombs, and its ash circled the entire planet in just 2 weeks. Let me walk you through the evidence. Exhibit 1, the eruption itself. On April 10, 1815, Tambora didn't just blow its top, it ejected roughly 60 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. That's not hyperbole, that's the measured estimate from geological records we still have today. Exhibit 2, the global temperature drop. Within months, average temperatures across the northern hemisphere fell by 4 to 0, 7 degrees Celsius. That might sound trivial. It wasn't. For agricultural societies living on razor-thin margins, it was catastrophic. A few degrees meant the difference between harvest and starvation. Exhibit 3, what happened in North America. New England saw snow in June. Vermont recorded snow drifts in midsummer. Farmers who'd already planted their seeds watched them rot in the cold. Corn, wheat, and potatoes, the backbone of survival, failed across the continent. Exhibit 4, the famine itself. In 1816 and 1817, food prices in Europe tripled. In some regions they quintupled. Bread riots erupted in Switzerland, France, and Ireland. Peasants starved, children went hungry. This wasn't abstract, it was visceral, immediate, and nobody understood why. Here's the cruel irony. The volcanic ash that caused the crisis also created spectacular sunsets. Painters across Europe became obsessed with capturing the vivid reds and oranges that filled the evening sky. They were documenting the very phenomenon that was destroying harvests below them. Exhibit 5, the ripple effects. The Irish potato crop failed catastrophically. Thousands died. This famine, 30 years before the Great Famine of 1845, showed the vulnerability of depending on a single crop. The lesson wasn't learned. History repeated itself with even deadlier consequences. Exhibit 6, how people explained it. Without atmospheric science, without seismology, people invented theories. Some blamed sunspots, others blamed comets. Religious communities interpreted it as divine punishment. The actual mechanism, stratospheric sulfate aerosols reflecting sunlight, wouldn't be understood for over a century. But here's what makes 1816 truly strange. It produced one of the most famous works of fiction ever written. Mary Shelley, trapped indoors by the perpetual cold and gloom, wrote Frankenstein. A volcano in Indonesia, essentially, gave us one of literature's greatest monsters. Exhibit 7, the economic collapse. Not just famine but systemic breakdown. Labor markets seized up. Migration exploded. Thousands of Europeans emigrated to North America seeking stability. Entire villages were abandoned. The social fabric, already fragile after the Napoleonic Wars, nearly tore apart. Exhibit 8, the agricultural response. Farmers began diversifying crops. Governments stockpiled grain. Infrastructure for food distribution, previously non-existent, started to develop. 1816 taught the world that monoculture was deadly, and that coordination mattered. Some lessons, at least, were learned. Now here's the part that should keep you up at night. We know about Tambora because it was documented. We have records, measurements, accounts. But volcanic eruptions of similar magnitude happen roughly every 500 to 1,000 years. The last comparable eruption was Mount Pinatubo in 1991. The next one could be tomorrow. Except now we're not farming subsistence crops. We're feeding 8 billion people through global supply chains. A Tambora-scale eruption today wouldn't just mean snow in June. It would mean coordinated global famine, agricultural collapse, economic catastrophe on a scale we've never experienced. Exhibit 9, what we learned from 1816. Climate science was born from trying to explain it. Meteorology, atmospheric physics, even early seismology, all accelerated by the need to understand why the world went cold. Disaster, paradoxically, forced us to become smarter. So here's what we know now. Mount Tambora's eruption was the most powerful volcanic event in recorded history. It killed an estimated 71,000 people directly. Tens of thousands more died from famine and disease in the year that followed, and it reshaped global agriculture, literature, and science forever. The year without a summer isn't ancient history. It's a warning dressed up as a story. It shows us how fragile our systems really are, how a single geological event on the other side of the world can topple civilizations. We're more connected now, more interdependent. That's progress, but it's also vulnerability. And that's the real exhibit here. Not the snow in June or the failed crops or even Frankenstein. It's the reminder that nature operates on a timescale we can barely comprehend. We build civilizations, create systems, assume stability. Then a volcano reminds us who's actually in charge. Subscribe so you don't miss the next disaster hiding in plain sight. We uncover these world-changing events every week.